Okay, here's another YouTube video. This one's going to be about rechargeable batteries, because one of the things I realized when I moved down south here, for some reason in the last year or so, alkaline batteries don't seem to hold up in this climate. I don't know whether it's the heat, the humidity, maybe we use them more than I did when we were up north. But at any rate, it seemed like I was going broke buying batteries all the time. So I decided to revisit the rechargeable battery market and see what's going on there. Now, like everyone else, I probably assumed, or I did assume, that the lithium-ion batteries would be dominating the marketplace because they seem to be in everything. Cell phones, flashlights, I mean anything you buy with a consumer non-replaceable battery seems to be lithium-ion. Well, that's not the case. It seems like these metal hydride batteries, the old school technology, is dominating the marketplace in the consumer rechargeable battery. The different size A's, D's, double A's, C's seem to be nickel metal hydride now. They seem to have revisited this technology, tweaked it a bit, because this is a subject that's kind of near and dear to my heart, because I was into RC a lot quite a few years ago and used to deal with these batteries quite often, deal with different rechargeable batteries back then. And the technology was, had a lot of drawbacks back then. One of the big things about these batteries, the metal hydrides, which were a cut above the old school nickel cadmiums we used to use, but they both suffered from two major problems: battery memory and no shelf life. I mean, you could charge all your batteries fully up, put them away, take them out a month later, they'd all be dead. You'd have to charge them up again. That seems to be they cured this problem. Both of those problems they seem to have been able to deal with this, these third and fourth generation nickel hydride rechargeable batteries. Some of these are boasting a 12-year shelf life. Some of them are up to a year. At any rate, you can charge them, put them away, and supposedly you have a decent battery when you take it out later on to use it, which was the main problem with these batteries. That's why they never took off big in the consumer market, because people like to stockpile batteries. It's just one of the things we put away for a rainy day, and these batteries were never suited for that. They worked okay in the RC hobby because you were charging them up, taking them to the field, draining them, and you were fine. You didn't put anything away. You charged everything the night before you left. So we never had issues with that. They worked great for our hobby, but really nothing else around the house. One thing you'll notice right off the bat when you start getting into buying these, you have to be careful. I read a lot on the internet. A lot of it's confusing because there's so many different brands and stuff out there, and even the brands seem to, Energizer puts out 3 or 4 different, they'll vary from place to place where you buy them, or run to run when they make them. I'm not really sure, but the one thing you want to watch on these is amp hour. The main reason why I can't never remember the name of these batteries. They're related to these lithium ion. I think they're called lithium ion polymer or something like that. The reason why this type of battery chemistry didn't take off in the rechargeable battery market, consumer grade, is because of the chemistry of these batteries. Each cell puts out around 3.3 to 3.8 volts, relatively. No matter what size they are, this is 3.8 volts, this is 3.8 volts, this is 3.8 volts. There are 3 different size batteries. So that's the reason why, because if they even made it in these size batteries, it would put out 3.8 volts. Too much voltage. You'd be going from 1.5 volts, which is what the devices are rated to take per battery, to 3.4 to 3.8. You'd be burning stuff up. So this battery, they haven't moved into this. They haven't crossed over yet, the two technologies. But like I said, getting back to amp hour, the price point on these is all over the place too. Amp hours I have a cold, I'm sorry about that. The amp hours are all over the place. These are generic batteries. These are sold by a company down here called Batteries Plus, I believe is the name of the place. They're a no-name battery. I could just kind of bought them. I didn't even look at them. I just picked them up because they were dirt cheap. I think you get a pack of 4 for like $8, and you get 4 with a charger for like $11. So I figured that's pretty good. But when I got home, I realized when I started reading on the internet about all the pitfalls of these batteries are 2,500 amp hour for AA. That's a good solid battery right there. I mean, that's a lot of power. Okay, so although they were cheap, sold in their stores, they might be trying to make a name for themselves. I don't know. But these here ones are probably the largest amount of amp hours I've found out of any of the AA sizes. Now, I got these at Dollar General. These seem like a really great deal because they're like $3.99 for a pack of 2, which is like, oh my God, I get rechargeable battery for $3.99. You could charge it 1,000 times. That's great. But the problem is when you open them up and you look at them, and this is relevant on the battery only. It's not usually on the packaging. It's relevant on the battery itself, but you have to literally get a magnifying glass to read these. But then when you see, I don't even know if I can find it on this one. I'm not even sure what these are. I just got these. Just picked these up the other day, waiting for this video to be made. It's usually these are 1,300 amp hour. That's not too shabby, but it's nowhere near what these are. It's about half what those are. So none of these are created equal. These supposedly, from what I can see by looking in the pack, these are 1,900, the Energizer. Now these Duracell little ones are AAA, and they're rated at 1,000. So that's not bad for a AAA battery, 1,000 amp hour. That's about high as you're going to get on these, unless you get the Panasonic ones, which I haven't been able to lay my hands on any of those yet because they're not sold locally. They're only available through Amazon, and I just haven't been able to get my hands on any. But they're supposed to be the cat's meow when it comes to these rechargeable batteries. I mean, I'm going to get some in to test, but I don't have any yet. This is everything that's available locally here. And another thing you got to watch out for when you buy these is chargers. These chargers are they're dubious at best. Some of them, you have to be careful. This Nuon charger that actually came with the Nuon batteries, from what I'm reading and from what I've been able to test by charging batteries with it, I think it's one of the best chargers here in this group. As far as how it charges the batteries, because what happens with these battery chargers is there's 2 ways they can make them. They'll either have a delta V circuit, which means they'll monitor the battery's voltage and they'll cut off at when the battery reaches a certain voltage, that's when they stop charging, and they'll turn over to like a trickle charge, a very light little charge just to maintain the batteries until you come and remove them from the charger. Those have a tendency to be very good chargers, but the problem is once your batteries age, sometimes they'll never reach that maximum current threshold, so they'll just keep on charging. So you want a time circuit built in there as well, be it like 6 hours, 8 hours, whatever, because chances are if these been charging at the proper current for over 6 hours and they haven't reached the peak charge, they're probably never gonna. So it's not really healthy for these batteries to keep charging and charging and charging. So to have both circuits built into a charger is the way you want to go, and this one does both. So that's very, very nice for a charger. Basically, you're getting for free with the batteries. I'm very impressed with that. The Rayovac charger, junk, total junk. I mean, I wouldn't even use this. I only bought it because it came with 4 batteries. The problem with this charger, I should say, is each bay isn't independent. You have to have 2 batteries in it to charge, so it's charging 2 batteries at a time basically. And the problem with this is this charger is it has a delta V, so that's how it's charging, but it's going to shut off when the first battery reaches the top voltage. So you may pull 2 batteries out of here, may get one that's not fully charged, which isn't good for these batteries. To have, because what happens is if you have 2 AA batteries in a device like a remote control or a or anything that takes two batteries, if one battery dies before the other one, what these batteries do is they'll try to charge one another, and it's not healthy for them. It limits their life. So you want to make sure both batteries are getting a full charge so they drain equally. This charger is not going to do that. One battery reaches full capacity, it's going to shut off. The other one could be halfway, 3/4, wherever it happens to be. And that's all going to depend on how dead it was when you put it in here in the first place. Stay away from these type of chargers. The quick way to know if you have independent circuitry in a charger is each battery bay will have its own independent indicator LED. That's what you want to look for. And then delta V and time charging is very important. This charger right here is an independent charger. It has manual controls on it, which I kind of don't like because you have to manually set this for the amp hours of the batteries you're putting in it. Which I guess if you're like a guru and you're like really into this, you won't ever forget to do that. Now, if you don't change this and just leave it on A, it's going to trickle charge everything you put in it, which is basically probably what I'm going to do. I'm just going to put tape over this switch and just leave it as like a trickle charger. Because, you know, this high gain setting is only going to be good for D and C batteries. You don't want to charge these little ones. They'll get too hot. You'll ruin them. So that's probably what I'm going to do with this charger. But then again, this charger was only $10. Very cheap. My recommendation is with this is I don't have one yet. But I would buy if you're going to get into this as like a household thing, I would buy a really good charger. It's going to make all the difference in the world of how long these batteries last and how well you can charge them. But that's about it. Until I get the other ones in, I can't really do any kind of comparison because I really want to get a hold of some of those Panasonic batteries to see how they're going to perform. I mean, I've heard great things about them. I heard some of them. I heard the AA batteries are up to 3,000 amp hours, which, man, I can't even believe. You know, I can't even find D batteries down here with that type of amp hour rating. So they should be pretty good when they come in. But anyway, that's the skinny on these. Watch your amp hours and make sure you get a charger that charges each bay independently. That's the most important thing to look for that I can see so far with these. The amp hour thing is going to be a little bit difficult because sometimes you can't read this amp hour until you actually get the batteries home. But you'll know not to buy that brand again if the amp hours aren't up to snuff. I would look for AA batteries. I would look for at least 2,000 amp hour. These little ones here, I would look for at least 900 amp hour. Don't go anywhere below that. That's where I would try to be. I mean, if you want to pay more money, you can get really high capacity ones. Like I said, I have no experience with them yet because they seem to be only available on places like Amazon and the battery websites. But you could get, like I said, 3,000 amp hours in a AA if you want. You know what I mean? But you're gonna pay. It's gonna be like $20 for 4 batteries. If you have a use for that, like a really good flashlight that's gonna take a lot of, take something when you want to be running for a long time, you might want to go with that. But just remember, the more amp hours, the longer they take to charge too. That's another thing. These take about 6 hours to charge. These are gonna charge in like 2 hours. So that's another difference. These little cheap ones are great for remote controls and stuff like that don't use a lot of power. They'll save you a lot of money. You go pay $4 for them, $4.99, $3.99, whatever you can get them for. Dollar General, that's who sells them. And you'll have rechargeable batteries for remote for the foreseen future. And remotes don't draw a lot of current, so even though they're only like 1,200 amp hours or 900, whatever you manage to get, it should be fine for that. But that's about it on the battery front.